Have you ever wondered why some people seem to come back from a crisis or a setback, not just recovered, but actually stronger, while others just get by? Well, we're going to look at the hidden signal that separates genuine growth from simple recovery.
So let's start by challenging a concept that we're all taught to admire, and that's resilience. We're always told to bounce back from adversity. But what if bouncing back is actually the wrong goal entirely?
Okay, look at this. This slide shows a really critical distinction. Resilience is about enduring a shock and then returning right back to where you started. It's a neutral outcome, right? You're back to baseline. But antifragility, that's something else entirely. It's directional. A system that's antifragile actually becomes stronger because of the shock. It doesn't just recover, it improves. It creates a brand new, higher baseline for performance.
And that right there is the first critical signal. See, recovery isn't the same as progress. If a setback leaves you exactly as you were before, you have to see it as a wasted opportunity. Real growth isn't about just surviving the hit, it's about being fundamentally altered for the better by it.
Now, you might be thinking this is just a mindset thing, some kind of positive thinking, but it's not. It's actually a pattern that we can observe in all complex systems that are really built to last.
This pattern is everywhere once you start looking for it. Think about your own immune system. It doesn't just recover from a virus, it develops antibodies, making it more robust for the future. Evolution itself uses environmental stressors to select for stronger traits over time. And careers? They're often defined not by some perfect linear plan, but by the disruptions that force us onto a new, more valuable path. So this isn't some personality trait. It's a fundamental property of any complex adaptive system.
So how does this actually work? What's the underlying mechanism that really turns a stressor into a source of strength?
The process itself is actually deceptively simple. When a system gets hit by some kind of volatility, that stress acts like a diagnostic tool. It's like a flashlight in a dark room. It doesn't cause the weakness, it just reveals the fragility that was already there, hidden beneath the surface. And it's that exposure, that new information, that forces a meaningful adaptation, leading to a much stronger state.
So discomfort isn't damage. It's high-quality, unfiltered information. A project that fails, a piece of really tough feedback, a sudden shift in the market. These things aren't just problems you have to solve. They are signals, and they're pointing directly to your weak assumptions, your fragile dependencies, and your single points of failure.
So what happens when we misunderstand this signal? Let's look at the long-term cost of treating stress as something to just endure, rather than something to learn from. This chart really shows how the two paths diverge over time. So, the resilient individual, they take a hit, they work hard, they recover, and they get right back to their baseline. They plateau. But the anti-fragile individual takes that exact same hit and they use the information from that stress to adapt and rebuild to a stronger state, in this case, up to 110%. Now, after a few cycles like this, the performance gap between them becomes absolutely immense. And this really highlights the hidden danger of a purely resilient approach. By focusing only on bouncing back, you never actually address the underlying weakness that made you vulnerable in the first place. It's like patching a crack in the wall but never fixing the faulty foundation. You're just leaving yourself exposed to the exact same failure the next time a shock comes along.
So this brings us to the fundamental shift in perspective that's required to move from just surviving setbacks to actually strengthening from them. Most of us think of growth as addition. Adding new skills, more resources, another layer of process. But true, lasting strength often comes from subtraction. It's about strategically removing the very thing that stress just proved is fragile. Think of a company that, after a market downturn, streamlines its entire product line, focusing only on what is truly essential and profitable. That's subtraction.
So when you remove a fragile dependency, you immediately reduce your single points of failure. This, in turn, creates more options and more flexibility in how you respond to things in the future. By systematically limiting your downside risk, you actually put yourself in a position to benefit from the upside of volatility without being destroyed by it. You're not just patching the system, you're re-engineering it to be fundamentally more robust.
Okay, so let's turn this observational lens inward. I'm going to leave you with 3 questions to help you run your own kind of anti-fragile audit. First, think about your work, your projects, your skills. Be honest. Where would an unexpected shock or a sudden stressor cause the most damage? What single dependency or assumption or even person holds the most risk for you right now?
Okay, now take that fragility you just thought of. How could you reframe a challenge in that exact area?
not as a threat, but as the most valuable source of information you could possibly receive. What would it teach you that a period of stability never could?
And finally, maybe the most crucial question of all. Instead of asking what you need to add to protect yourself, ask yourself this: what must you subtract? What dependency needs to be severed? What fragile belief has to be discarded? What must you let go of to become stronger?